and welcome to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. Well, today we're taking a look at what is happening in the Congress. We've all read Ghulam Nabi Azad's 5-page letter. It has raised some valid points. There have also been discussions about the tone of the letter, his own motive, his own agenda. But I think enough has been discussed on that. Today, I would really like to focus on what next for the Congress. There is going to be an election, we are told. We are also told that some rebel candidates may put in their hat. Shashi Tharoor is one name that comes to mind. There is maybe Bhupinder Hooda may turn renegade. The Gandhis themselves are putting up an official candidate. It could be Mallikarjun Kharge, it could be Mukul Vasnik or Ashok Gehlot. Gehlot himself is not very keen on this. So there are a whole lot of combinations that are going on. And in the middle of it, we have one of our panelists, Sanjay Jha, who suggested that maybe a combination of Priyanka Gandhi and Sachin Pilot could run the party. In the meanwhile, I'm also told that Priyanka Gandhi, whenever she comes back and before she went abroad, she has now moved to 10 Janpath. KC Venugopal is reporting to her and she is trying to meet people. We saw snapshots of her meeting Telangana leaders, people from the Northeast. So she is trying to be some sort of a, Ahmed Patel role in keeping the organization together while her brother does that Bharat Jodo Yatra. But of course, this was before Azad's letter. So I'm going to open the discussion to my panelists. Joining me is Rashid Kidwai, author of 24 Akbar Road and a columnist and commentator. Ashutosh, founding editor of satyahindi.com. Dilip Cherian, political commentator and analyst. And of course, Sanjay Jha, he's a suspended still Congress leader, but also writer of many prolific columns. Rashid, what is happening with the Congress? Is Tharoor going to throw in his hat? And why would he? What does he gain from it?
So, Priya, I think it's a very kind of exciting time in the Congress. There is a sense of anticipation because for many years since post-1969, political leadership was with the Gandhis whenever they were there, and they would do the heavy lifting, they would campaign, etc. and all others were reduced to, being loyalists and just the followers. Now things is changing because a Gandhi model is failing or faltering. So now the field is open. Anybody who can contest and win elections and run the party as per his or her whims and fancies. So this is theoretical aspect. There is no list of electoral college. Say if anybody, I'm saying from the, so to say the, but somebody who doesn't have that approval of Nehru Gandhi family, if that person contests and, gives a list of 10 PCC delegates. Now, if even if one delegate is not actually the registered delegate, then that means that, these papers would get rejected. And there's no way you can find out, who is a party delegate or who's not, because this is only known to Mr. Madhusudan Mistry or to the state party presidents. And very quickly, there are 4-5 states where Congress is almost zero: UP, Bihar, Bengal, Tamil Nadu, politically speaking, on their own. But organizationally, they have over 45% of votes. So, and that Nana Patole, this Ajay Kumar Lallu and all, they all are, so to say, Gandhi loyalists. So very much the reins are within Gandhi family, and it is them who will decide who would occupy that big office at 24 Akbar Road.
So basically, the official candidate is bound to win. Maximum Shashi Tharoor can do is, maybe get another notch on his stature as the one who dared to contest, but that's about it. But Ashutosh, who has gained in the optics of this letter war? After Ghulam Nabi Azad's letter bomb, have the Gandhis lost or have they won in stature?
I see any letter written by any of the old congressmen, certainly it has an impact on the image of the Congress party. There is no doubt about it, because it's not the one letter, it's not the one person who is exiting. There is a whole lot of people who have exited Congress party, and there's a list of it. So obviously there will be question mark that why people are leaving, and most of them are leaving because they don't see any future in the Congress party, and they don't see being sent to the Rajya Sabha or in a position where they can they feel that they can get some kind of power. So, but in terms of Congress losing on the ground, I do not see something like that happening. Ghulam Nabi Azad might be a big leader in the Congress party, but outside the Congress party, he has to prove himself. At the max, he can impact Congress party in Jammu area, not in the Valley area. And even in the Jammu area, there will be BJP, which is very strong of late. So how much he's going to win and how many seats he's going to, that's very important for him. But frankly, the issue today is, and I'm really happy and glad for the simple reason, because at least the Congress has decided to do something. The problem with the Congress party for the last 7 years, they think that they can come back. 2019 was a total disaster. Now they are forced to the corner where if they don't do anything, not only the future of the Congress party, but even the future of the Rahul Gandhi, Sonia Gandhi, and the Priyanka Gandhi will be totally decimated, and they will be blamed for the decimation of the Congress party. Can they live with that kind of historical guilt? So I think this is incumbent on them to think out of the box. And if Rahul Gandhi is not becoming a contesting election, I think that's a welcome sign. If Shashi Tharoor is contesting election, I think that should also be a welcome sign, because Shashi Tharoor, not that Shashi Tharoor is a great leader, but Shashi Tharoor has an all India presence. Shashi Tharoor is intellectually superior to many people in the Congress party, and Shashi Tharoor contesting election, if he contests, that gives a symbolic meaning. At least there is some semblance of democracy in the Congress party. I think that's very important, and that should count for the Congress itself.
And you've come up with a suggestion which would come up earlier also, the combination of Priyanka and Sachin Pilot. I mean, I don't see Rahul Gandhi agreeing to that, but what has been your feedback on that suggestion within the Congress? Have people reached out to you?
Well, Priya, let me tell you, and I'm not going to obviously take names, but many people in the Congress know that that is a very viable proposition to take on the BJP. I've given the logic behind it. Rahul Gandhi steps back doesn't mean that Rahul Gandhi is no longer a star campaigner for the Congress. Let me also be very frank. Rahul has a huge following within the Congress. You go to the south of India. I have been in the south of India in the recent weeks. And trust me, in Tamil Nadu, in Kerala, Andhra, Karnataka, the Gandhi political brand remains formidable. Please, this is something that a lot of Congress people are aware of. So if Rahul takes a step back, does the Bharat Jodo campaign, I think it's perfectly in sync with the way the Congress should move forward. You see, everybody doesn't have to be the president. And even though if Rahul were not the president, trust me, and all of you are media veterans, the curiosity and the interest in Rahul Gandhi will only escalate if he steps down as a Congress president. Please remember that public moods are such that when you're out of the limelight or you step back, you actually get a massive wave of support and sympathy. Rahul Gandhi, in my opinion, will win brownie points. I have told him that at a very personal level as well. The second point, which is very important, is that Priyanka will then be the glue, because a lot of people within the party, even outside, love the Gandhis. And, it's totally understandable. I'm telling you, I have enormous respect for the Gandhi family. People see me as being critical of Rahul, but I have only commented on his leadership, not on him as a person or his ideology or his passion for, fighting it out in the way he thinks best. So I do believe Priyanka can be the glue. All of you know her. She's a good communicator. Personal experience, she's great at managing relationships. She can listen to a dissenting idea. She is willing to kind of engage. So that's the powerful. Sachin Pilot, for those who don't know, I can tell you he's a very hardworking guy. He's extremely determined. And I believe in politics, if you don't have passion and ambition, you shouldn't be in that space.
But I think you just nailed Sachin's career by suggesting
that.
No,
I didn't. No, I didn't. No, I didn't. Let me assure you, watch the space. Sachin is a player going forward. Watch the space. And I'm making this as a public disclosure. The Congress needs him as much as he needs the Congress. But the last point is that end of day, I think enough of Congress bashing, because I think that's become a national sport. I completely agree with Ashutosh that the Congress needs to be congratulated, better late than never, for holding elections. I don't agree with Rashid Bhai entirely that it's very.
I'm not sure the elections have been held yet.
No. I would say don't write it off. Priya, don't write it off. I don't agree with Rashid Bhai completely either that, everything is very opaque and nobody knows who the delegates are. I do believe the Congress is making a sincere effort at bringing about change. You can't say that about the Bharatiya Janata Party or frankly, none of the regional
Why
parties.
Fix something that's not broken is what the BJP would say. But Dilip, you're the image guru here. So, his suggestions, Sanjay's suggestions for Rahul Gandhi to step back, and that might be good for his image. Would that be good for his image if he takes a step back?
It certainly would be good for his image and for the Congress party. And definitely, I think that Priyanka stepping up to the plate will make a huge difference. But you do need a president, and that's the decision they'll have to take. You can't have a joint president. That's one. What does the Congress president need to be? Who does he need to be or she need to be? The Congress president needs to be someone who is definitely bilingual, who has the stamina to fight, who is willing to recognize that states are where the Congress has to begin its revival. And four, it needs to be a person who can be trusted. So, how many people tick all these boxes? That's the problem the Congress is facing. You may have Tharoor, you may have all Kharge and all kinds of names. But the constitution of the Congress party recognizes that the president is, in a sense, all powerful. And that is why all this fighting and juggling and shadow boxing is happening. You have to have a person who is willing to play second fiddle to the Gandhi name. And that is the overarching thing in what Sanjay has said, in what Ashutosh has said, that there is no doubt that the battering ram is going to be the Gandhi name, plus, and no one is willing to talk about it, plus someone who can raise resources. So if these two qualifications don't exist, then any elections, and I think elections are a great idea. I agree with Rashid that there is opacity because the actual election process has not taken place, cannot take place before October 14th or whatever they want to have their eyes on. That's the problem. The real problem is that October 14th or 17th, whatever it may be, is not going to be really legitimate in Congress terms because the other elections, the step to the plate elections, haven't happened.
But Rashid, the person who has the best chance is a Gandhi-sponsored candidate. I mean, that's something we all agree on. So then, does it make sense at all for Shashi Tharoor, or will he be just relegated as someone who will never get any post after that in the Congress?
Priya, there are several possibilities are there. Anybody who contests the election of Congress president will automatically, kind of jump up, because there is a kind of perceived hierarchy is there where you have very senior leaders like Kamal Nath, like Mr. Ashok Gehlot, like Digvijay Singh, like Ambika Soni, P. Chidambaram, and several leaders, very senior leaders that are there in the states also. And Shashi Tharoor would become, first among equals. His name would come. He would get a lot of space. To recall the famous election of 1997, Sitaram Kesri versus Rajesh Pilot on one side and Sharad Pawar on another. What was Rajesh Pilot's objective? He also wanted to jump up the ladder. We won up to Arjun Singh and Madhav Sindhia and several others. Then there comes that kind of bargaining which happens behind the scene. Would Shashi Tharoor be considered for as a leader of the Congress party in parliament? I mean, in Lok Sabha, I think that's a pretty legitimate claim that he should get it, or someone like him should get it. So that's the kind of thing. Then a place in the high table, the working committee. The working committee, as you know, that 12 people are elected and 12 are nominated. So if there is a free and fair election, which can happen because there are AICC delegates, only 1,200 people vote for it, it's possible. Now, just one point I want to make, Priya, that there was no disrespect to the Congress when I said that, they don't have election mechanism. If you enter 24 Akbar Road, outside there is a barrack which used to be actually Narasimha Rao when he was Prime Minister and Congress President. The security guards used to sit there. So there is a 12 by 9 room. And that outside that room, there is a kind of a plate is there which says the election office of the Congress Central Election Authority. मतलब इतना भारी भरकम नाम है, and those 7 members cannot sit in that room, cannot fit in that room. There is no mechanism. You go to any state party office, you will not see this office of this, Congress Central Election Authority. So we must recognize this stark realities that exist, and it's not only confined to the Congress.
That is true, in fact. I'm going to take a quick break and come back and continue the discussion on the future of the Congress. So stay with me. Hello and welcome back to the NewsX Sunday Guardian Roundtable. We are here discussing what next for the Congress, particularly the Gandhis. Ashutosh, what then should the Gandhis do? Shouldn't Rahul just come and step up and lead from the front? I don't agree with them saying that he should just step back and all, because ultimately, to Rahul hi hai na, whatever.
Priya, two things. First of all, I think we all grew up as a journalist being very, very critical of the Congress party. So that still reflects in our mindset. And India has, because the Congress party has been the dominant party, the hegemonic party all through. So as a journalist, at that point of time, when we were called to a journalist. Then everybody was having contrarian viewpoints and has an adversarial role with the government. I think Congress suffers from that. That's why the objective analysis of the Congress is never done. Either it is this way or that way. The point number two, I think the Congress election in the Congress party and is something which Congress is always blamed for, that they don't hold election. But does BJP hold elections? I haven't seen BJP, any of the BJP president being ever elected. All of them have been nominated. Be the Bangaru Lakshman, be the Jana Krishnamurti, be Amit Shah and then Nadda and everybody. So, but we love to criticize Congress party for that. Thirdly, I think every election has a fallout. In 1938 and 39, when the Subhash Chandra Bose again was elected against the wishes of the Mahatma Gandhi, then within 3 months he has to leave the Congress because entire CWC, it revolted against him. Not because they didn't like Subhash Chandra Bose, but because Subhash Chandra Bose as a radical wanted to convert Congress party into the Communist party. That's an entire CWC. So I think I don't expect something like that to happen today in 2022. I don't expect that. But if there is an election, this should happen. About Rahul Gandhi, I think Rahul Gandhi is better placed if he steps back, take a back seat. But as you know and I know, every political party has a core. Nehru-Gandhi family is the core of the Congress party. Whosoever is the president cannot detach itself, herself or himself from that core. Like the Narendra Modi can do anything, but can he detach himself from the RSS? No, he cannot detach himself from the RSS. Can Akhilesh Yadav detach himself from the legacy of Mulayam Singh Yadav? No, he can't. Can Tejasvi Yadav can detach himself from the Lalu Prasad Yadav? He can't. Stalin cannot detach himself from the Annadurai and the Karunanidhi. So the core, Rahul and Nehru Gandhi family will remain as a core of the Congress party, but they should give autonomy to the president, who should be allowed to take decisions, even the risky decisions, and they should be fully backing the candidate whosoever becomes the president. If that is going to happen, I think the revival of the Congress is there. If that is not going to happen, then I keep my fingers crossed.
This is, Rashid, what your old formula of Gandhi's being the trustees and letting someone else be the CEO day-to-day thing. But Sanjay, where are the G23 in all this? They're all leaving for greener pastures rather than trying to do a reform within the party. That move seems to have failed.
Well, I'll share this with you very publicly, that when the G23 had become vocal, they wrote the letter and we were doing a lot of television shows. One of the things that I had told them all was that you need to put up an alternative candidate. It's one thing to just criticize Rahul or the Gandhi family and the dynasty for all the problems, but the truth is you need to put up whoever you agree on. And let me tell you, today Sashi is putting up his name, but I don't think the entire G23 is supporting him. That's the problem with the dissident group that very often Rashid and Ashutosh have correctly pointed out, the internal bickering within. But the real point remains that I think when you discuss the Congress's future, please do not delink it from the way the BJP is. And let me make one point. Today, if all of us are discussing the existential crisis in the Congress, it's not because the regional parties or Aam Aadmi Party has destroyed the Congress, it is the BJP which has. And the truth is that, and I want to tell you this, that the BJP is, Mr. Modi may be called, no alternative and all that. But the truth is the BJP is not what it was in 2014 or 19. The party can be defeated. Its performance, in my opinion, has been awful. And I'm not saying that with any prejudice or bias. I think they're a disaster for the country. They're pathetic when it comes to the constitution. They have fractured the nation. I think India is a shadow of what this country ought to be. I believe Narendra Modi can be defeated, even if he's today a front runner. It is not a contradiction to say that the BJP is a front runner in pole position, but the BJP can also lose the 2024 election. The Congress needs to understand this dynamic. I believe today, if they bite the bullet, and therefore I have written a piece where I said, you want to make an omelette, you have to break the eggs. You have to be bold. You have to be imaginative. And therefore, the suggestions coming forward, if Rahul Gandhi takes a step back, so what? You're still a shareholder, even if you're not the CEO or a stakeholder, whatever you want to say. So I think, these are the things that the Gandhis need to understand. And one point, because I have been the voice of G23 for a long time, I need to put this also on record, because a lot of people see me as just somebody who's a dissident or a rebel. It's not true. I also want to put it on record. There are many members today who are critical of the Gandhi family. They were part of the Congress working committee. And for 20 years, when Mrs. Gandhi remained the Congress president, when no elections were held in the Congress working committee, nobody complained. So, everyone has a role and a responsibility. And I have never been a fair weather friend. And this is why I want to put it on record that if the Congress party wants to reinvigorate itself, the Gandhis need to be smart, take the bold call. Trust me, you never know what 2024 will throw up.
Dilip, the anda or the omelette is best enjoyed with some slice of toast. So who is the veg? Who is the who's going to be holding the egg up, so to speak?
I think that the choice is very limited. It will probably be a Gandhi. Let's be very clear. And I think that the
Gandhi as the face. Gandhi as
yes, and the anxiety is who to actually make the person who does the real heavy lifting. What Ashutosh said is right, that Rahul has a certain volume of support in the South and many states. You got to convert that into votes. That's task number one. Task number two is, as I said, raising the funds. Task number three is being conciliatory with the few satraps who remain in the states. The problem is that, you cannot be prickly and want my way or the highway on everything. You have to recognize that if you want to win 2024 or 2029, whatever it be, the route is through the states. And I'm continuing to emphasize that because there are still a few states where the Congress has a fighting chance to begin its revival. It cannot begin its revival ab initio across the country suddenly. That ain't happening. Even with a Bharat Jodo Yatra, it ain't happening. It needs to focus on the states which are low-hanging fruit and make sure that where its principal opponent, which is the BJP, has the maximum number of seats, it needs to do the maximum there, because that is where, incumbency and a mixture of all kinds of things give them the greatest opportunity and leverage.
But Rashid, how serious, you wanted to comment what something Dilip said also, no? And my question is, how serious were the Gandhis even for the election process? Even before Azad's letter, as you wrote in your column, there was no committee in charge, no one, to oversee things. They just went abroad and just thought they'll announce Gehlot's name and ho gaya election.
I think Priya, I see a change in Gandhi's attitude towards the Congress. They actually want someone else to be a kind of as co-stakeholder or stakeholders, and this is a very good thing because they've realized that every time there is election from parliament to panchayat, any state municipal election, they get the blame, and precisely Rahul Gandhi gets the blame. It's not to say that he should not be blamed, but actually it's the party that loses. See, you look at Jawaharlal Nehru, he spent over 50 years in public life, and how many years was he Congress president? Just for 6 years. Okay, Indira Gandhi also before 1980, she didn't occupy that office, but she was all powerful. So these kind of models are there. One thing I just want to tell you, because we were talking about egg, omelette and all that, it reminded me. See, Shashi Tharoor is a very cautious man. He's very ambitious. He's very cautious. He has contested a lot of elections. I think he lost that UN election, but other than that, he's been winning all elections. And Mr. Tharoor had contested a election in St. Stephen College presidentship, and where this scrambled leg was his favorite thing in the cafe, and there was a slogan, "Jeetega Zarur, Shashi Tharoor." So Mr. Tharoor will make sure that he is in a position to actually win or gain from it. Then only I think he'll throw his hat in the ring.
Comments on Tharoor, and also, I remember in your show you pointed out that Rahul Gandhi as president didn't do too badly. He won 3 elections, Karnataka as well as the round in Chhattisgarh, Rajasthan, Madhya Pradesh. So why is the party also looking at him as a failure? I mean, media, though, of course.
See, the problem with the Rahul Gandhi is probably among all the Gandhis, he carries the biggest baggage ever. And probably he's not as articulate as he should be. His communication skills needs to be honed. But I think Rahul Gandhi is, in my opinion, is the most underestimated politician in the country. When he became the party president, Congress party won Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh. He made BJP sweat in Gujarat. In Karnataka, he did not let the BJP to come back to power, but he never got that the credit for this. So I think there is a very strong and propaganda and the campaign unleashed by the RSS and the BJP and funded very strongly, whose sole purpose is to kill this brand called Rahul Gandhi. And they had succeeded up to a certain extent. There's no doubt about it. Rahul Gandhi has been asked, he's a man who has power but no accountability. He was the man when he lost election in 2019. He wrote a letter, he resigned. Nobody wants to give him any credit for that. Mr. Modi is the most overestimated politician in the country. He lost 11 elections in a row after 2017. Nobody criticized him for that. And I can count all of them, including Madhya Pradesh, Rajasthan, Chhattisgarh, Goa also, Haryana also, Odisha also. But nobody is willing to say that Mr. Modi is losing election in state. Mr. Modi looks to be invincible nationally. There is no doubt about it. But Mr. Modi in state government, in state, is not invincible. He lost Jharkhand. He lost, and the way he contests elections, he puts everything there. That's very admirable. But despite that, he lost. So I think somewhere we have to be objective assessing Congress party and Rahul Gandhi. It's the Congress party. We go back to Rajesh Pilot and others. But we also forget that when Mrs. Gandhi was all powerful, Chandrasekhar, he contested election for the CWC and he won elections. His career was not decimated by the Indira Gandhi. They had mutual admiration for each other. When Mrs. Gandhi became dictatorial, when emergency was to be announced, then Chandrasekhar resigned and joined other political parties. It's not that the people who rebelled in the Congress party, they were finished. No, that's not true. Subhash Chandra Bose was expelled from the Congress party because he made unsavory statements against the CWC and the tall leaders of the Congress party in 1939. But Subhash Chandra Bose and Mahatma Gandhi both had the mutual respect for each other. When Azad in the Fauj, he was the man who coined the term father of the nation for the Gandhi. He had the one, he with great respect, he talked about Subhash Chandra Bose and Maulana Azad. I think that is the tradition which Congress should be very proud of. So today, if anybody is contesting against the wishes of Rahul Gandhi or whosoever, should not think that their career is going to be over.
Thank you so much for this conversation. Is Rahul Gandhi the most underrated politician, or is he, I think, a victim of his own circumstances and his own reluctance? That is something we're going to watch and wait. But thank you all for this chat.
Thank you.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.